Now, when you look back at the last 30 or 40 years where the social landscape was shifting in the way that I've described, what you see is that sometimes the distortions in the Electoral College favor the Democrats and sometimes the distortions favor the Republicans. This chart shows the difference between the probability of winning the Electoral College and the probability of winning the national popular vote. So the line graph shows in red the advantage for the Republicans or the disadvantage, and the blue line shows the advantage for the Democrats or the disadvantage. So the way to track this chart is when the line goes above 0, that means the advantage belongs to that party, and when the line goes below 0, the advantage belongs to the other party. Where they cross, the system is perfectly balanced. What you see here is that very recently, the red line has soared way, way above the blue line. That means that the advantage has shifted radically for the Republicans. I mean, the advantage in the Electoral College. I mean that the chance for the Republican now of winning the Electoral College, even while losing the popular vote, is rather high. But it used to be different. The Democrats in 2004 had the advantage. John Kerry, the Democratic candidate, had a pretty good chance of winning the Electoral College even while George Bush, the Republican incumbent, was beating him pretty soundly in the popular vote. Here's our problem statement. How do we motivate both parties to seek the national popular vote? Because if they do that, they both will be trying to get everybody in America to vote. The 83% that are basically ignored now, both parties would be competing to get all those people to vote. So I'm going to show you two slides that are meant in graphic form with numbers to illustrate the situation that would be envisioned by a strategist for a Republican candidate for president. This is the way they actually think. They think, how am I going to win the Electoral College? And so I'm going to show you how their thinking would change if 15 electors in a state that they were sure to win by plurality were actually pledged to the winner of the national popular vote instead of to the person who won the vote in that state. Then I'm going to show you a slide that shows how those same strategists would think if 29 electors in a swing state were pledged to the winner of the national popular vote instead of to the person who won the plurality in that state. I think you're going to see that the strategist's thinking changes dramatically. Well, let's look at the decision tree. The status quo right now is at the top. The status quo is, of course, that the national popular vote is completely irrelevant. And if the votes were cast in 2020 in the way they were cast in 2016, with the minor variations from state to state, it is the case that the Republican candidate has about a 2/3 chance of winning the Electoral College, 66%. It is also the case that even though the national popular vote would be irrelevant, barring the change I'm about to illustrate, it is the case that the Republican candidate has about a 47% chance of winning the national popular vote and a 53% chance of losing the national popular vote. Now that's the situation. What the slide shows is the way thinking would have to change if 15 electors in a state the Republicans were going to win, a solid red state, if 15 electors were pledged to the winner of the national popular vote instead of the winner of the state's vote counted all by itself. The answer is that we move down the bottom of this decision tree and we see if the Republican candidate loses the popular vote, that's where you see 53%, then what are the odds of still winning the Electoral College? Well, instead of having those 15 votes in the pocket, they've actually gone to the Democrat, who won the national popular vote, and so now the probability for the Republican to carry the Electoral College has gone from 66% to just 40%. So what this tells the Republican strategists is, gee whiz, I actually have to compete to win the national popular vote. I need to open offices in California, in New York, and in Illinois. I need to run ads in all the states where there are still going to be Democratic majorities, because I need every Republican to turn out everywhere in the country. And guess what? The Democrat, their candidate, does the exact same thing and says, I need to have every possible Democrat in Texas turn out, because I need to win the national popular vote. Because if I win the national popular vote, stay on the bottom of the decision tree, then the probability of the Republicans still carrying the Electoral College is only 40%. So the decision tree shows you how the strategists will completely change the way they think about the election if only 15 electors in a Republican state are pledged to the winner of the national popular vote. Now let's look at the next slide. This is a slide that shows you the decision tree if, in fact, we are looking at a swing state. And here you get a very similar result. You have to have more electors pledged in that swing state to get the same result. But if they're pledged not to the person that carries the swing state, but to the person who wins the national popular vote, then the probability for the Republican of winning the Electoral College without carrying the whole country drops to 38%. So now we've seen that just two changes, never before this significant or this important or this operationally crucial in the history of America, just two changes can in fact cause both parties to seek everyone in the country who's eligible to vote actually coming out to vote for the one party or the other. A total transformation of the way campaigns are run, a total transformation of participation, and a total transformation of democracy in America.